The foundation was too level. Not carefully level, not impressive for its age level, but flattened across 13 acres of bedrock to a tolerance that a modern surveyor holding a laser would sweat to match by hand. And when the full archive of scans, excavation records, and measurements surrounding the Great Pyramid of Giza was fed into one of the most powerful AI systems ever built, and it was asked a single blunt question: who actually did this? The answer it produced didn't echo the tidy paragraph in the schoolbooks. It read like a contradiction those schoolbooks have spent a century politely stepping around. Start with the ground, because the ground is where the trouble begins. The base of the Great Pyramid rests on a platform leveled to within roughly 2 centimeters across an area covering 13 acres. Engineers behind the tallest towers standing today would consider that margin remarkable, and they get to use laser-guided instruments. The builders of Giza, according to the accepted account, had wooden rods, knotted string, and the sun. Add to that the alignment. The entire structure is locked onto true north with an error of only 3 to 4 arc minutes, about 0.05 of a single degree, for a monument raised around 2560 BC. The conventional story has always had to absorb these facts rather than explain them. It goes like this. The pharaoh Khufu ordered the pyramid as his tomb. Somewhere between 20 and 30,000 laborers working in rotating teams over roughly 2 decades. Dragged and stacked millions of limestone blocks using ramps, levers, copper tools, and rope. Enormous effort, simple technology, staggering result. It is a clean narrative. It is also a narrative that has been fraying at the edges for years, because the closer the instruments look, the less the tools seem to account for the output. That is the gap people started handing to Grok. Grok is the generative AI developed by XAI, a system built to hunt for patterns across enormous tangled datasets and reason through them without the inherited assumptions a trained specialist carries into the room. When users began loading it with the archaeological, astronomical, and geological record of Giza and asking it to weigh the probability that the attributed methods could produce the measured precision, it did not return a comfortable answer. It flagged the leveling and the alignment not as proof of anything supernatural, but as evidence of an engineering methodology that the official record simply does not contain. Those are 2 very different statements, and the distance between them is the entire story. So who were the hands behind it? Here the evidence turns out to be far richer than the myth. Southeast of the plateau lies a settlement excavators call Hayt el Ghurab, the lost city of the pyramid builders. A sprawling, organized worker town dating to the 4th dynasty, between roughly 2575 and 2467 BC. What came out of the ground there dismantled the oldest cliché about Giza in a single stroke. These were not enslaved masses driven by whips. The bones tell of people who ate well, prime cuts of beef, fish, bread, and beer supplied in quantity. Skeletons show the strain of brutal physical labor, yes, but also healed fractures. Proof that injured workers received real medical care rather than being discarded. They slept in structured dormitories and organized themselves into crews with names. One gang scratching the proud label "The Friends of Khufu" into the stone. The Egyptologist Zahi Hawass has spent his career hammering this point home. The slave army image is a fiction, stitched together from a misreading of the Greek historian Herodotus and the Book of Exodus, then cemented by Hollywood. The real builders appear to have been skilled, salaried Egyptians, many of them farmers who reported for duty during the Nile's flood season when the fields were underwater and there was no crop to tend, drawn in by food, shelter, and prestige. That is the human answer to the title's question. But it deepens the mystery rather than closing it, because a proud, well-fed, seasonal workforce still leaves the precision paradox exactly where it stood, and the ground is still giving up secrets. Since 2015, the Scan Pyramids project has been reading the pyramid's insides with muon radiography, thermal imaging, and ground-penetrating radar, seeing through solid limestone without touching it. In March 2023, the team confirmed a previously unknown corridor, roughly 9 meters, about 30 feet long, hidden above the main entrance. Then in November 2025, at the Sharjah International Book Fair, Zahi Hawass announced that remote-operated robots had pushed to the far end of that passage and reached a sealed stone door. What sits behind it has not been shown. The reveal is scheduled for 2026, and Hawass has called it a discovery that could rewrite the history of the pharaohs. Potentially, in his words, the greatest find since Tutankhamun in 1922. None of this is settled, and it shouldn't be treated as if it were. An AI weighing archaeological data is a young method, and its flags demand peer review, independent testing, and hard scrutiny before anyone crowns them as fact. There are specialists who will push back on every line of this, and they should. Extraordinary claims survive only on the strength of the evidence stacked beneath them. But here is what refuses to dissolve. The precision is real. The workers were real, and far more capable and dignified than the old story allowed. The measurements have been taken, the town has been dug, and a sealed door is waiting. When a machine built to see patterns without loyalty looks at Giza and says the methods on record don't fully account for the result, that is not a reason to shrug, it is a reason to keep digging. Some questions aren't answered by the certainties we already carry. Sometimes it takes an entirely different kind of mind to finally ask the right one.